Hey, I'm grateful to be here today and present. I love to present because it gives me an opportunity, one, to study because I have to force myself to prepare, but also just to give me an opportunity to share some thoughts. And Russ was reached out and he said that we're going to start talking a little bit on these Wednesdays about some skills. And so for the next couple of weeks or months or however, you'll get some skills on Wednesdays. And being the first one to go, I get to choose what skill I get to teach first. So I was pretty excited with that. So I decided we're going to talk a little bit about closing today. And before we jump into the skill of closing, I want to talk a little bit about kind of the mindset around this. Because here's the thing that's so interesting about closing. Closing is a lot in our head. Our ability to close starts in our head. We have to start with our mindset. We work a lot in this company on our mindset, but I want you to think of something. And as John Syatt likes to say, I want you to write this down, because if you see this for yourself, you'll understand it a little bit better. So if you draw this circle, draw a full circle, connect the circle. Okay. This is what our mind does. Okay. It wants to connect a circle. It wants to connect from the start to the finish. It always wants to go around and around. So if you hear somebody talking and they stop in the middle of a sentence, we have a tendency to want to finish the sentence. We want to continue with what they're saying. And we do a lot of this in our own head. We just go really quickly through it. So now I want, next to that circle, I want you to draw another circle and to go halfway around. And then in the bottom, start doing a dotted line up to the top. So you have two circles. One's a full circle all the way around, and the second one is a circle with dots that are connecting the conversation or the circle that we're talking about. Now I want you to think about this for a second. Okay. When we have conversations, like I talked about the first circle, when we have this conversation, we are connecting the dots. When I have a conversation with Ruby, or if I have a conversation with Rick, and I tell them the entire thing that's on my mind, they don't have to create an ending to the story. They have the story. But a lot of times we don't know the whole story. So we create our own version of what that story is. That's the dotted line, our own version of the story. So let me ask you a question. I want you to think about this. You're up in the mountains. You just fell off a log and you broke your leg. Okay, you broke your leg, you're in a lot of pain, and you're laying on the trail, and I come up and I say, I see you fell. What's wrong? And you answer, you say, well, I broke my leg. And I go, oh, that sucks. Well, have a great day. And I keep walking. How do you think you're going to feel? Somebody put that in the chat box. How do you think you're going to feel if you're that person who just broke your leg? I acknowledge the fact that you have broke your leg, but then I just keep going. How are you going to feel? Pretty bad, right? Okay. Unheard, unsupported. Great. These are all great words. So I want you to think about this, because we're going to talk. I want you to think of this analogy as we talk about closing. Because what I did in this situation with somebody who's broken their leg, I didn't close anything. I just went away. I left things hanging. I left it out there. I left some frustration on one person's part because they don't know what's going on and they're not finishing. I say that closing is a mindset because when we meet with people, we naturally are trying to close our circle. We are trying to close a circle. Now we have two choices. One, it can be closed by me as a salesperson. I can explain and show them and help them connect those dots. Or two, they have to do it themselves. And the interesting thing, have we ever had an opportunity where we have a conversation with somebody, we think it went great, and then you come and you hear from somebody else that they interpreted it totally different than you. Like they almost thought of something totally different than you were even going. I'm sure we've had that opportunity. You've had that before. It's it's because we're connecting these dots, and we connect the dots, this circle, based on our own experiences and our own thoughts and things that we're going through our mind right there at that time. So it's our job as salespeople, it's our job in this process to help people connect the dots. Connecting the dots is this closing process, the closing process in the deal. We have a tendency, and I've seen this a lot, I've done this a lot. I have a tendency that when we're on the phone or we're in person, that we want to leave it up to them. We don't want to be pushy. We don't want to be the person who says the wrong thing. Okay. There's this belief in closing. Some people believe their fear of rejection. You know, there's a big portion of rejection. If I ask somebody about closing and they say no, then there's the rejection. The next one is the fear of acceptance. I talked to an agent just a couple of weeks ago, brand new agent, lots of confidence about getting on the phone, got on the phone, can make an appointment, but as soon as he makes the appointment, he has no idea where to go with this. And so he's frustrated and he's like, well, I don't really want to set an appointment because now what do I do once I set the appointment? And it seems weird to say it out loud that says, well, I don't want an appointment. But in actuality, he would not close because he didn't know what to do after he closed. So this fear of acceptance, we have that quite a bit with us as we're growing through this process. It's not just about closing for the sell, it's closing for anything. It's connecting the dots in our own life. Because of that, we don't know where to go from there. The other one is we just don't know how. We don't have the skill. We haven't learned the words. And I'm gonna go through a couple closes today so that you can have the skill, and then you just have to memorize them and incorporate them into your presentation. And the last one that I came up with is our belief system tells us a different story. Okay, I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be that kind of a salesperson. I don't want to be the one that's always asking for the business. I want them to just know my value, accept my value, and come at me and let me list their home or help them through a process. So any of those four can stop us from actually going through and closing. I find that for everybody, one of those four is going to be a major reason for it. So think about that. So fear of rejection, they don't like to be rejected. Fear of acceptance, what do I do once they say yes? I don't know what to do. They don't know how, so the skill itself. And then the last one, just our belief system tells us a different story. So I don't want to be pushy. So one of those four. So think about that in your own mind. What are you doing? What is stopping you from closing the sale?
There we go.
The interesting thing is we have a tendency to not really understand what we're doing. We think we're closing, but we're not. So just one quick suggestion on that. Record your prospecting call and then just listen to the last 2 minutes of the call, and you'll see whether or not you're closing. Okay, so there's 3 keys to a powerful, effective close. The first one is you got to have a great presentation. Okay, if I come at a presentation or the prospecting, when I say presentation, there's multiple presentations in our day. Okay, we're presenting to our spouse, we're presenting to our kids, we're presenting to the people that are around us. In fact, my nonverbal presentation while I'm driving could be an aggressive driver. That's a presentation to the people that are around me. We present all the time. So when I say have a great presentation, even if we're on the phone, we're prospecting on the phone, if we don't have a good presentation on the phone, the close is going to be hard. When we have a great presentation, the close is a natural process in the whole presentation process. Okay, that's number one. You got to have a great presentation, and that's a skill you can learn, and you can practice that. Number two, you gotta be in rapport. You've got to have a connection. Have you ever felt really uncomfortable in a situation? If you're uncomfortable in the situation and you try to close them, what are the chances that they're going to feel uncomfortable as well? pretty high chance that they're going to feel uncomfortable. Okay. So if I don't have a connection with them, some kind of a connection, then I have to wait to close on that. So if we're prospecting, let's talk specifically about prospecting. If I'm going through my script and I've got to the point at the very bottom of my script where I'm now asking for an appointment. If I'm asking for the appointment, but there is no connection with the person that I have on the phone, is there any chance that I'm actually going to get this appointment? Okay. There's no chance. It's not going to happen. You're not going to do something you don't feel comfortable with doing. Thinking about yourself. If somebody's asking you to do something, you don't feel good about it, what's the chances you're going to make that decision and go through with it? It's pretty low. So we have to have rapport. And rapport can be established very quickly with a few questions. It doesn't have to be this drawn out, I'm going to connect with you. We know who your family is, you know who my family is, and all of this. It's just feeling comfortable to move forward. You're connecting with them in some way. So when you're prospecting, if you're connecting with them, so if we're talking to somebody who wants to sell their house or for sale by owner, and they have multiple reasons why they want to sell their home, we sometimes jump to the conclusion that they want to sell their home because they want to save the money. And a lot of times that's true. But what if they are selling on their own because they had a horrible experience with a real estate agent and they don't want to use another agent? What if they're selling on their own because they have experience doing it and they thought, oh, well, let's give it another try? There's a lot of different reasons. So let's just pretend here that we have a for sale by owner that doesn't care necessarily about the money as much as had a bad experience with another agent. And every question I ask has to do with them saving money. And I can never connect the dots of what they're really feeling. When I go to close them, they are not going to want to work with me. They're not going to feel connected. But if I start asking them about their experience and I start connecting with them on that line, I'm going to have that opportunity. So first one, great presentation. Second one, building rapport. And then the third one is have a strong script for closing. The close is not something we want to wing. It's not something we want to just, I'm going to see how it goes and then I'm going to just close. Okay. That's where we start getting in our own head. We start functioning in our own head. When we're in our own head in a presentation or while we're talking on the phone prospecting, we're not listening to them because we can't. Our mind is processing and processing and processing. That's why we want you to memorize your scripts, because once you have it memorized, you don't have to think about the words. You can feel the words, you can hear them, and you can proceed. It's the same thing with a close. Okay. When you want to close in a presentation and you have an actual script that you can use, that you've memorized, that you feel, you go right straight into that automatic and you come out confident. See, the interesting thing about sales and us as agents with scripts, and I'll just say this one little thing about script because I think it's important, but when we are resisting scripts, it's in our own head on why we are resisting it. It might feel uncomfortable. Well, it's uncomfortable because it's not you yet. You haven't practiced it enough to make it you. You haven't gone to the point where you can go into an automatic mode and make sense and make it feel good for you. So on the script, on these close, I'm going to give you 3 closes today. And I want you to take them and I want you to memorize them. And I want you to incorporate them into your presentation because these are closes that will work and that will put you in the frame of mind to help you connect the dots of that circle for them. Now, remember, I want to go back. I'm going to keep going back to this circle because the circle that has the dots, this is them interpreting your conclusion. I don't want any of us leaving them to interpret what I want them to do. I want them to know what I want them to do. I want them to know clearly. Okay? Does that make sense? Hope so. Okay, so 3 scripts. Number 1, it's called a feeling script, a feel script. Okay, I'm going to ask 3 questions on these scripts. I'm going to lead them through a process. Okay, there's something about 3 questions. 3 yes questions, 3 no questions that get you in a pattern. We all seek for patterns. Okay, it goes back to the stories that we're talking about. We're trying to close the circle. We're trying to connect the patterns. So if I said something that, like, if I go da 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 da, most of us would probably know what the end of that is. So you hear these like jingles, and you can go through and you connect the dots, because we want to connect these dots. So 3 questions will help us through this process. So the first one is a feel one. So write these down. Okay, they're really simple. How do you feel about what I've shared with you today? Okay, so the first question is, how do you feel about what I shared with you today? Okay, the second one is, how do you feel about us working together? And the third one is, how do you feel about us putting together some paperwork right now? Okay, so I'm going to run through them again real quick. How do you feel about what I've shared with you? How do you feel about us working together? And how do you feel about us putting together some paperwork right now? Now, this is a really good one for somebody who's an amiable personality. Okay, they're functioning from their feelings. They want to feel it. Now, let me ask you a question here. Okay, if I say, how do you feel about what I've shared with you? And they say, well, I'm not really sure. Would I continue down the path of closing them? Somebody put it in the chat box. Is this a smart idea to go to the next question? If they are not comfortable with what I've shared with them. Jerry, you're right. No, exactly. They're not comfortable with it. So it gives you an opportunity to revisit your presentation. You go back in and you ask another question. So I say, how do you feel about what I've shared with you? Well, I feel pretty good about it. How do you feel about us working together? Well, I'm not really sure. I've got another agent that I want to talk to. Probably not going to proceed. I want to get 3 positive responses from this feeling close. Okay, it's 3 questions to memorize, and that's it. And you can have a dialogue through the whole process. Okay, the second one, this is the one I actually like. I like this one. This is called the 3 no close. So in this particular case, I'm actually looking for them to say no. Everybody likes to say no. It's just natural. We always say no. Do you want this? No, right? Do you need help in the store? No. So it's natural. We want to go through a pattern. So this one starts out with, is there anything else you want or you would expect from Century 21 to get your whole home sold? Is there anything else you'd expect from Century 21 to get your home sold? Now, obviously, we are looking for the no on this. If they say yes, well, then say, what else are you expecting? We want to know that. But once they say no, they say, no, that's all I expect. Great. Number 2, is there anything else you'd expect from me to get your home sold? Okay, so first I start with my company. Is there anything the company wants? Is there anything that you want from me? Okay. Is there anything else you'd expect from me to get your home sold? Okay, and then the last one, is there any reason we can't get started now? Okay, is there any reason we can't get started now? Okay, so obviously we want no's in this process. Is there anything else that we'd expect from Century 21 to get your home sold? No. Is there anything else you'd expect from me to get your home sold? No. Is there any reason we can't get started now? No. Perfect. Let's sign the contract and move forward. That's the one I like personally, because it gives me an opportunity to talk about what their expectations are. And really, when we're talking in a presentation, to get them to the point where they can close, we have to understand their expectations, and we hope they understand our expectations, or we're going to have a whole world of problems through the transaction, if we go through the transaction at all. Okay, so that's the second one. The third one, which I think is really good for the prospecting side of it, all of these can be used in the prospecting, but when you're on the phone, this one is really good. So I want you to write this one down just like this. It says, that's the very reason we should, and then do a line, blank, then write the word because, and then another blank. Now write the word now, and write that in capital letters. Now, what works better for you, afternoons or evenings? Or what works better for you, Monday or Tuesday? What works better for you? Another version, if you're doing this in your presentation, you can say, now, how do you spell your last name to get started into the contract? Okay, so let me run through this really quick. So what we're doing is we're filling in the gaps here with the answers that we're talking about, the conversation. So this leaves it open for you to have a conversation with them and talk to them directly about what they are doing. So that's the very reason we should. So whatever they say, it doesn't matter what they say. You can say, that's the very reason. Look, I'm moving to California. That's the very reason we need to get together. Now, we want to give a reason. Okay, they did a study where they took people in two different scenarios. First scenario, they had one copy machine in an office, and there was always a line for the copy machine. And they had one person go to the front of the line, so in front of everybody else, and say, can I make a copy? And then left it at that. And almost 90% of the time, they said, go to the back of the line. There's a line, go back there. Okay, 90% of the time. Now, they switched that and they said, now I want you to go to the front of the line and I want to say, can I make a copy because, and then give a reason, whatever reason it is. And they found that when there was a reason given, the person at the front of the line was more likely to allow them to come in and make the copy than without a reason. So we all search for reasons to do what we're doing. They also did this study at the airport where they went to the security line and they had the exact same effect. Almost 90% said no when there was no reason, and a good portion of them, probably, I think it was like 73 or whatever percent. It was a big significant difference between allowing them to go through this process. So they allowed them to go forward. It's the same thing when we're doing with a closing. That's the very reason we should get together and then give them a reason, because you need to get your home sold in the next 30 to 60 days, because you need to net the most amount of money possible. You give them the reason so they can engage with you. Now, we're going on to the now portion, and I had you capitalize it because the now is making a command. It's asking them and starting down the process. When we are closing, we are giving a reason for what we're doing, and then we are asking them to act. This is the part where we stop. We don't ask them to act. We want them to connect the circle on their own. We want them to do their own thing. So in this case, we want to say, now, we give them a command, an action item. Now, what's better for you, afternoons or evening? Now, what's better for you, Monday or Tuesday? Or if you're in the presentation, you're like, okay, now, how do you spell your last name? Let's move forward. You start moving down that path. So let me give you an example of this one real quick. Okay, somebody says, we need to move to California. I say, well, that's the very reason we need to get together, so we can get you to California, because homes are selling really fast right now in this area. Now, what's better for you, Monday or Tuesday? So it's a really short close, but it helps us move through the process. So we've gone through just 3 closes today, and there's more that we can talk about, but there's 3 of them that are really, really simple. And if you go back to what we talked about at the start, there's 3 keys to an effective close. Having a great presentation, so role play, practice, get the things that you're going to say down, build the rapport so you're connecting with them, and the last one is have this strong script so you don't have to think about it. You don't have to go through a process of saying, okay, now is the time to close. Because when you do that, you start getting in your own head. You start having your own system. I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to push them through the process. But if you believe in yourself and you believe that their best option is for you to work with them, helping them through the process and connecting those dots is going to be the way we do that. You have to connect those dots. When I come up on you and you've broken your leg in the mountains and I say, great, that sucks for you, have a great day, and I keep walking, that doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth. I want you to start believing that when you go to a presentation and you do not have a close, that you're leaving a bad taste in their mouth. They had you there for a reason. They had you over there because they want something to happen. And the only way something happens is when we have a call to action and we proceed. Otherwise, it's just informational, and everybody can get information online. Everyone can get information from the internet. But what they can't get is they can't get a leader to come in and guide them through a process online. That's why you're here. That's what your job is. So becoming that leader and having a way of closing and moving them through a process is exactly how we need to do it. Any questions? Okay, if there's no questions, then my challenge for you today is to memorize these, write them out, and really internalize them, and it will make a world of difference in your business. Okay. All right, let's end them with some affirmations and make it a great day. Set some appointments and close.